Hi sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim. If this is your first time of coming across this channel, sweetheart, kindly smash the subscribe button, turn on the notifications so you get notified each time I upload, and please give this video a thumb up. I appreciate you all, and I want to say a very big thank you to every one of you for always coming back to watch my videos and subscribing. You all are the very best. So today we'll be talking about a white woman who actually made a case for black people, saying that most white people that have something to say about black people do not have any black friend and do not know what is going on in black community or what black communities are facing and the very rest of it. And people are stitching, tagging into it, and also giving their opinion about it. And you know what? Stay glued to the screen. Do not go anywhere. You definitely will enjoy watching this. And yeah, let me roll the clip.
This is the post that keeps on giving and in all the wrong ways, okay? I've had to block so many people, delete so many comments, and literally, the only thing I did was shared the comment of a mutual, and it was an observation. That observation was statistically backed up by data that says white people in large do not have a black friend and yet have some very strong opinions. So the question in that we have to deal with as white people is, how is it we have so many strong opinions about racism, the impact of race on black people, the history of racism in this country, the current day impacts of any number of things on black people? Like, how is it we have so many strong opinions as white folks when statistically speaking we don't have any black friends? It's a fair point in question. And if anybody who is, thinking like, hey, I want to be an intellectually honest person of integrity, and then they realize like, oh shoot, I really don't have any black friends, but whoa, yeah, I do have some strong opinions about black people's business. Like, why is that? And maybe I should sit down and maybe I should think about it. Maybe I should reflect. Maybe I should dig into why it is I feel entitled to have opinions about things that have nothing to do with me. And this is the funny thing, because people understand this concept. So I use this analogy a lot because I had cancer. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, I wanted to know from oncologists, experts, people who'd experienced cancer, like what did you do to heal? How did you get healing? I didn't go to my 8-year-old and say like, hey, what do you think I should do? I didn't go to the guy working at the gas station who's never had cancer and doesn't know anything about cancer to say, hey, what should I do? I really value your perspective on how I should treat my body for cancer, right? Like, we can all understand that. But the minute you start telling us white people that we need to sit down and be quiet and maybe not act like an expert on something we have no lived embodied experience with, like, watch out. People coming out of the woodworks. Okay, and that doesn't even get into this comment here. This says, okay, how many white friends do the black folks have? Every race segregates themselves. It's not done intentionally or out of malice. And I think a lot of us white folks believe this and feel this way and live in vacuums. And because we don't have friends of other backgrounds, races, ethnicities, like, we can just be like, oh, this is just our little bubble, whatever. But there is a history of segregation and violence and redlining and racism and, did I say violence, against black people, indigenous people, and other people of color that led us into this place where today the vast majority of white Americans do not have friends who are black. And it doesn't work the other way for the people who are going to be like, hey, the vice versa. No, not vice versa. Watch another video that I posted on that, please. And yes, I know I'm white and, all. This is the post. People in large do not have a black friend and yet have some very strong opinions.
Y'all, please go watch that video and come back. She makes such a valid point about how so many white people have such strong opinions about the black community, yet don't have black friends. Or, like, barely know black people. Which reminds me of a story from my childhood. Story time. So, I've said before, I grew up dirt fucking poor. There was a black woman named Marion when I was about 7 or 8 years old. If it was not for this woman, my brother, my father, and I would have went hungry many, 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 many days. She used to babysit us, and she was by far one of the sweetest women I have ever met in my entire life. I come from an extremely racist family. This is the only black person I have ever seen my father around or have somewhat of a relationship with. This woman fed us. She babysat us. She washed our clothes because we couldn't afford even a laundromat. We washed our clothes out in the tub. This woman helped care for us. And one of the few times I saw my father cry is when she sent food to our house. And in a can of coffee in the top of the lid, she had put a $20 bill for my father. This woman lived on a fixed income and went out of her way to help us and my father. When my father saw that money, he cried. We were really struggling, and it meant a lot to him that she did these things. He used to call her one of the good ones. And it has been my experience in the last 20 years that I have lived in the black community. I'm surrounded by Marians. I'm surrounded by people who care, who want to make sure that you eat, who want to make sure that you're okay. Do you need help? I'm not saying the hood doesn't have its issues. It does. Every community does. But the black community has your back. And even though this woman, this beautiful black woman, helped us like she did, my father was still one of the most racist people I have ever known. He still dropped the N-word like it was nothing. He still used racial slurs when talking about non-white people. And I still was not allowed to have black friends. The level of ignorance and hatred and racist people, it knows no bounds and it has no shame. God bless the Marians of the world.
And in all the wrong ways, okay? I had to block.
Please pause and go watch the rest of her video and then come back to me. I totally agree with everything she says. I totally put a stamp on her message. There are so many white people who think and have an opinion on what does and doesn't happen to us. And they're strong opinions. They're strong and they're very vocal. But yet, if you examine their personal lives, they don't really have black friends. They don't have these discussions with black people in their lives. So you kind of wonder, how do you have such a strong opinion about something that you don't experience? You don't know someone who experiences it, and you don't have conversations around it to understand it, but yet you got an opinion. Then someone interjected their point that, well, just like there's a bunch of us that don't have black friends, I'm sure there's a bunch of black people that don't have white friends, and doesn't that make them just as much racist? And as she stated, and I'm going to state no, because I'm going to say this. One thing I can say about black people in general, even though historically and now we have been treated horribly by white people, our ability to still welcome someone different into our community and into our lives is huge. I'm not going to say that doesn't mean every black person is like, yay, white people, woo. But I'm just saying that for the most part, we're accepting of all kinds of people because we know what it's like to be treated like shit. And don't want to, even in anger, turn that on to another person. So I would have to disagree, because I think more black people are accepting of and inviting of others into our lives and into our culture. Some would argue that we shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't be so quick to be that way given how we're treated, but it's the truth. So, yes, I definitely agree with everything she said. And maybe if people stop talking and holding on to their fucked up opinions and actually listen to black voices, there may be some changes.
White people in large do not have a black friend.
So, as with any stitch, you should really go and watch the video for full context. So now that you did that, you need to understand the difference between a friend and an acquaintance. Just because you work with someone of a race or whatever, that doesn't make them your friend. If you don't have them over to your house regularly for parties, barbecues, social events, if y'all don't go out to lunch together, if y'all don't spend time together, y'all don't go to the gym together, play ball together, on sports teams together, that person is not your friend. They're an acquaintance. And again, just because you don't have a particular person of a particular race in your circle of friends does not mean you're racist. 9 out of 10 times just means you're a product of your environment. That means, you grew up with this group of people. You associate with this group of people. You live in a neighborhood full of these types of people. It is what it is. We often go where we're comfortable. My father was in the military, so I grew up in a multicultural environment. That's what I was comfortable with. So that's what I sought, whether it was in school, college, or when I joined the military. It stayed the same. And when I got out of the military, or when I would choose a neighborhood to live in with my kids at the time, I chose multicultural neighborhoods. That's what I was comfortable with. So, again, if you choose to not include people in your circle of friends, it doesn't make you a bad person. There's no reason to be offended by it. But just understand, it is what it is. You don't have any of those people in your circle. Now, if you want to have those people in your circle, then that's a conscious decision to go out and include and widen your circle of friends. So again, there's a difference between someone being your friend and someone being an acquaintance. You may have a lot of acquaintances that are multiracial. Doesn't mean you have them, and it doesn't make them your friends. So yeah, if you want to broaden that circle of friends, by all means have at it. But if you don't, then you can't really get butthurt or offended by data, because data is simply data. So, is she speaking facts? I would dare to say yeah. Because again, there's nothing that says you have to be inclusive and you have to broaden your circle of friends. What you have is what you have. And on that note, holla at your boy.
Data. White people in large do not have a black friend and yet have some very strong opinions.
Go back and watch that video because she's absolutely correct. The white people who have very strong opinions about racism not being a thing anymore do not typically have any black people in their life. No, the guy that you say hi on your way to the break room doesn't fucking count. The black woman in the cubicle that you keep touching her braids even though she tells you not to, she's not a friend. You might have acquaintances, but you genuinely do not care about these people. So until you have black people over for a meal, you get invited to the barbecue, you know their kids' names, you have ridden in the car with them, possibly have gotten pulled over with them. Until you have a genuine relationship with black people, your opinions about racism and how it isn't a thing just isn't fucking valid, because you haven't heard stories and experiences from black people that you love, that you care about their well-being. You're concerned about their family and their kids in today's society. Until you have that kind of relationship with black people, you don't get to negate their experiences. Do better.
Do not have a black friend and yet have some very strong opinions. So the question in that...
I tried to duet this and TikTok removed the sound, so I am stitching it. Please go back and watch the original. You want to hear all of that. Honey is preaching. Thank you. So I'm not going to reiterate what she said. Please go back and just watch the whole thing. She did it perfectly. I'm just going to piggyback onto it from this perspective. I don't know how many of you have been to a Christian boarding school, but I went to one for a little while. The school was predominantly white, but in the dorms, it was mostly ethnic, literally people from other countries. And I remember two of my friends that were white that happened to also be staying in the dorms commenting to me about how strange it was to be surrounded by non-white. And then they asked me, they said, is this how you feel every day? Because you're the only brown one in class most of the time. And I'm like, I'm used to it. I'm used to being the only spot of color. I actually take notice when it's the opposite and I'm surrounded by more ethnic people than whites. And I go, wow, hey, okay. Most of us are used to it being the other way around. And much like my other posts about people who don't have children attending the schools, fighting so vehemently to remove things like CRT and whatnot when their kids don't even go there. Or if you live in a town like mine, it's filled with retirees that are really upset at anything that sounds like inclusivity or diversity, and they need to make sure they pull the clock back before they exit this world. And there aren't that many ethnic people here, so they're really just fighting to keep it white. They're not combating an area that's filled with ethnic diversity. My kids are the only brown spots in all of their classes. Over the years, more of my friends have been white than black collectively. And I'm not saying that out of a preference, I'm saying that out of proximity. And I've never really thought about it, but this creator is spot on, because I could tell you how many times I went to an event, a barbecue, something at one of my white friends' houses, and I'm the only spot of color in the room or in the house. I'm used to it, but I wonder how often those same friends have been in a situation where they're the only non-ethnic in the room. How many other close friends they have, not acquaintances, not I know a guy, not my cousin's daughter married a black guy, not that, a close friend, a friend. So yeah, it is interesting that it does seem to be predominantly people who do not have close personal relationships with people of other ethnicities that are the loudest about all the stereotypes.
Do not have a black friend.
Actually, they made great points. And for you to talk about something, for you to talk about people's experiences, for you to jump into people's business, you should know what they are going through. You should understand them. You should know them, not just having, like, having them as your colleague or something. You heard what the other one said. How many times have you invited her over for BBQ? How many times have you been pulled over with her? Not just the people you talk to like on a daily basis, like hi kind of people. How many friends do you have? I mean, how many black friends do you have as a white person to talk about their experiences? So like, all I understood is that you don't talk about what you do not understand. So for you to talk about something, you should know about it. And you do not have any right to tell black communities or black people what to do, what not to do, how to react, how not to react, if you do not know their experiences. This is where I am going to call it a day. Let me know what you all think in the comment section. Making this video was a really big hassle, and I am sorry that I kept touching the camera and all that. Please, my apologies. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.